Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it's not just me who's presenting this today, because this is going to be a whole school affair from Dubai International Academy. It's going to encompass teachers from the primary school and students from our secondary school. I'd like to introduce those people concerned. It's Ms. Manal Kawasmi, who is a teacher in our primary school, and also Ms. Barbara Stapelberg from our primary school, and two of our students from the secondary school, Zain Jalad and Azalia Watfa. So they will join me this morning to give you a whole school comprehensive view about what's happening in Dubai International Academy in Emirates Hills with respect to student well-being, managing students on a day-to-day basis and making sure that our students are comfortable in their environment. Essentially, as a school with 1,900 students with over 80 different nationalities, we often feel in DIA like it's kind of like living in an airport. You know, you've constantly got students coming in from different countries who are just basically off the plane, and you're having to get used to a situation where they're having to be made comfortable in their environment, and that's very important for us. Where there's children from a multitude of different international settings and backgrounds, of course they need to feel a sense of community in the school and recognize that it's not just like any other country, and it's not just like any other school in their own from their own national context. So we put a lot of work into making sure that our students do feel comfortable on a day-to-day basis in the school. I'm a deputy principal at the school, and I manage heads of year in the secondary school for each of the year levels, homeroom teachers for each of the year levels, but everybody in the school is essentially involved in the pastoral care and personal and social development of students throughout the whole school. And that extends from KG1 right up to year 13 in the diploma program. Just to give you an idea before I pass over to my colleagues to explain to you what they're doing, just to give you an idea about what we envisage and our theoretical perspective of what we want to achieve in the school has been elaborated as. Just have a look at this slide here. This slide is essentially work that was done, significant work that was done by Roger Hart with UNICEF in the 1990s, but it's still very, very relevant for what we would try to do today in today's setting with students in our schools. Roger Hart recognizes that there's a ladder of young people's participation, starting at the lower levels, which are essentially non-participatory, where students aren't actively engaged in significant endeavours around about school on a day-to-day basis, or where students are instead, heaven forbid, used as decoration or manipulated in various different events in school, which is obviously not what a school wants to do. Instead, Roger Hart's emphasis is that schools should be, as much as possible, trying to reach the upper rungs of the ladder of student achievement. Now, that's not an easy kind of objective for any kind of school to have. Essentially what it means is that our emphasis should be on young people and adults sharing decision making about the environment that surrounds us in school and outside, sharing decision making. That means that children, as much as possible, our students as much as possible, need to recognize problems in their environment and need to share with us as managers in the school, as teachers in the school. We need to try and share our decision making as much as we can. And if there's one thing that you can take out of this talk that we have this morning, it is the emphasis that good things can happen if you try to present a problem to your students, be it in student councils, or be it in prefects, or be it readily established student organizations for this purpose. But great things can happen if you try to involve your students in the problems of our surroundings and try and share decision making. Of course, that's a cultural shift within the school, but it is one that is very, very much worthwhile and one that you can garner great success from. So to explain what this means in purpose for the primary school initially, and go on in turn to what it means for the secondary school with our students, I'll call upon firstly my colleagues to explain their work. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Manal is a year 1 teacher at Dubai International Academy. So it's the two ends of the school. So basically what I'm trying to do is to prepare the kids for taking over in high school, where they will be in charge of building friendships and dealing with difficult situations among students. So for me, for year 6, it's really important to give them that opportunity to develop those skills. That's why we wanted them to work with the year 1 students, where they can practice developing skills where they need to be a facilitator and a leader. So if we can just use, there we go. Just the reasons, what we basically do is once a week, my class will be getting together with Ms. Manal's class, who is in year 1. We call it buddy sessions or buddy lessons. We made sort of an acrostic poem from the buddies, the word buddies, just to give you an idea of why we're doing it. Basically, it's to build relationships amongst each other. As we said before, students come to school from different backgrounds, international environment. Some of them are new to the school, especially in year 1. Some of them not always speak English really well. So we kind of to pair them up with a buddy from the other year level in order to feel safer and more confident when talking and sharing ideas and sharing their experiences with each other. Ms. Manal, maybe you want to continue with the next few reasons?
Understanding friends. So basically, we pride ourselves on the fact that we are a very international school. Year 1 and year 6 are obviously, like Barbara said, both ends of the spectrum with regards to the primary school. We like to sort of pair up children that are the same nationality. So for example, I have a Palestinian child in my class, she has a Palestinian child in her class. Let's get them together so they can have like a strong bond together. They can build on that, talk about their common interests. Differentiating. Basically, obviously, it's already common and it's quite clear. Year 1s are 5 to 6 year olds. Year 6s are 12 to 13? 10 to 11. So it's quite a gap, especially in the early years when they're children. And the younger children try to understand what the older children are saying. The older children try to speak, more simply to the younger children. Diversity. We are probably the most international school in Dubai. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that. Inquiring minds. We are a PYP school where it's all about inquiry-based learning. Enriching the school life. We feel that that really is basically what we do. I mean, we constantly encourage the children to have the best, well-rounded school education. Synergy. It's all about collaboration. We work together as a team. We work together as partners. They create very strong bonds with their buddies. My kids get so excited when they know that it's buddies today because our buddies are coming. So it's quite a nice experience for the kids as well.
And also for differentiating, back to differentiating, we would also, when we pair them up, the year 1 student with the year 6 student, when we pair them up, we also think of things like, oh, this is a new student to the school, this is a student that has been in the school for a long time, let's put the two of them together. Or like we recently had a situation where Ms. Manal in year 1 had a new student coming in, couldn't really speak a lot of English, but could speak German. So I had a German student, so I would have we paired them up so that that student could feel a little bit more comfortable in his environment. And that really helped that student to be able to speak and to share his feelings and ideas. So that was a good way of differentiating. Also, sometimes a more quiet student and a shy student work better with a student that a little bit more outspoken. Sometimes not. Sometimes we put a shy student with another shy student, and then eventually they start to build a conversation between them. So differentiating really, really important when we think of who we pair up with who amongst the two classes.
This is our first buddy session of the year, meet and greet, where they get together and they are trying to break the ice. It doesn't always work out like Barbara and I try with regards to nationalities. It's not always a perfect fit, but it does end up working quite nicely. It's also obviously because it is such an international school that the children do like it, that, oh, I'm from Sweden and you're from Palestine. So, let's talk about our similarities and differences. Let's learn from each other.
they get that international feeling within their classes, because sometimes, like this boy, for example, is the only Danish boy in our class. So for that boy, it's quite nice to go to year 1, where he just once a week can speak to another Danish child. So that's also, like I said before, differentiating and making them feel comfortable in their environment. Obviously, we try to encourage the use of English as much as possible, but there are times that we allow them to speak in their home language, basically because the point is for them to feel comfortable. Inquiry.
Okay, our first unit of inquiry, we have the units of inquiry, and that's basically how our curriculum is set up. Our first unit of inquiry was who we are, and we talked about similarities and differences between our friends, between relatives, our family members. We even ventured out to the community. So this was a nice Venn diagram activity that we prepared about similarities and differences. So on one side, one buddy wrote down, drew, talked about, obviously in the younger years, they do more drawing, as opposed to the year 6 child would do more writing, and that's quite evident in especially these two buddies. The year 6 child, obviously you can see lots more text, whereas the younger girl in year 1 was drawing pictures about herself, her likes, her language, what she likes to eat, her family background, and same with the year 6 child. And then in the middle, that's where we're similar. So although we are quite, maybe sometimes worlds apart, this is how we can, at the end of the day, be the same. And like I said, it makes it very nice for them to find those similarities, because it makes them comfortable and it creates that very strong bond with their buddy all year long. We do not change normally buddies all year long. They stay the same between December and June, unless, of course, a child from her class leaves or a child from my class leaves, and in that case, we would have to pair them up accordingly.
In the environment, and to kind of form a bond between them and their buddy. We also at the same time try to link whatever we do during these buddy sessions with our unit of inquiry in year 6 as well. For this, on this day, we were doing a geography unit where they had to work on giving directions and mapping skills, so they had to evaluate their own maps and directions. It was a map of the school building. They had to evaluate that map that they drew by testing it out on their buddy. Could their buddy understand their map and their directions to find a certain location in the school? Also, because it was year 1, for year 1 it was quite nice to get to know the school, to walk around with their buddy around the school, to get to know the school a little bit better. So yes, we do try to link it with what we are doing in class as well. Also, year 6 have an exhibition where they need to speak to parents about what they've been learning in class. So they present what they've been learning in class to the parents. So there we encourage them to use, obviously, more formal language. But when we go to our buddies, then they need to simple down their language a little bit and use different ways of explaining and presenting.
That's the differentiation.
Yes, differentiation. Also different audiences that you need to speak to, because it's very difficult for them sometimes to change their speaking and their language that they use when they speak to older people or different audiences in general.
This is a lovely activity that we did during UAE National Day. Being a primary school teacher in the early years, I set up centers. And when the year 6 children came down to visit us, they were really, really impressed with the different activities that we did relating to the UAE culture. As you can see, only 2 of them here that I'm showing. The henna, nice paintings and designs that they can do on hands, as well as a letter to Sheikh Mohammed. What would you like to tell Sheikh Mohammed? What do you love about living in Dubai? Is there anything that you would maybe advise him on? Would you like to change anything in Dubai? What are the certain things that that your family is happy about living in Dubai? So it was quite a nice thing for them to experience different activities as a rotation. There were also, you don't see them here, but there were also activities of painting the UAE flag, understanding what the red, the black, the white, what they mean, the colors, what they mean. We also had the decoration of the coffee pot, where they chose gold and silver paint, and they put nice decorations on that. So it was a very nice sort of, let's now appreciate our host country and appreciate where we live and the culture itself.
Also for this, really important for my year 6 students, I don't just say, listen, now we're going to our buddies and then we go. We first have a bit of an introduction in our class. where we talk about how can we ask our little buddies good questions to stimulate their thinking a little bit. So we discuss the type of questions we can ask them, especially when I told them you're going to write a letter to the Sheikh. How are you going to encourage your buddy to think of ideas of what to write to the Sheikh? So we don't just say, listen, line up, we're going to give us our buddies today. We have a bit of a prompting session where we encourage them, or where we think of ideas of ways to help our buddies, right? And to stimulate their thinking a little bit. Yeah, also this was a great activity that we did between the two classes.
One of the most successful sessions that we've had.
Yes, this was a session on numbers. So about a week before, we discussed in Year 6 what a good lesson would look like. It would look like with an introduction, and then your main part of the lesson with your plenary at the end. And then my students had to go and plan a maths lesson for their buddies who were doing number at that time. So they had to actually go and plan this lesson. First, they just, during our introduction, some of them presented their lessons or part of their lessons that they're going to do with their buddies in class in Year 6, so that they can get ideas of what would work and what not. They had to make some resources and manipulatives that could help their buddy understand the concept of putting together, adding, or it could be subtracting, whatever they chose their lesson to be about. And then they went to their buddies and they did it with their buddies. And at the end, my plenary would be different probably than her plenary. Sometimes we do the plenaries at the end of the lesson together, but this one we did separately, where I could ask my students what worked when you were doing a maths lesson with your little buddy, and what didn't work. What would you do differently next time? So that was also a good way of getting them together and working on what we actually do in class.
The Year 6 students, it was almost like role playing. So they were now the teacher. And now this is your student, and how would you teach this student about number, about counting, about addition, about subtraction, about recognition of numbers, how to write and form numbers. So it was a very, it's fantastic, I think, in my opinion, the Year 1s and Year 6s, because there is such an age gap that it's almost like an older brother, older sister kind of relationship. Oh, you know, they feel responsible. The Year 6 children are no longer now taking, you know, what a teacher says and doing it. They are now in that role. And at the same time, the Year 1 children are not listening to an adult teacher. Oh, they have an older, you know, friend who is helping them learn at the end of the day, you know, what their concepts are in math or language.
Yeah, in terms of self-esteem for the Year 6s, it's fantastic to have to play the role of the teacher and be the one that is in charge. And then for the Year 1 student, they do feel a little bit more comfortable getting the wrong answer or saying something that's probably not right in front of their buddy rather than in front of the whole class situation.
Okay, this is our science unit. So we were talking all about living things, the differences between a living thing and a non-living thing. What are the needs of a living thing? How do we grow and stay healthy? So we obviously used our buddies again, and we asked them to help us plant 3 different seeds, a broad bean, a chickpea, and a black-eyed pea. And then also we both, Year 6 and Year 1, talk all about the scientific method. It's obviously much more simplified to 5 and 6-year-olds as opposed to the Year 6 children. But nonetheless, we do introduce it that early. So we know what the big word hypothesis is. Oh, it's just a fancy word for guess. Let's take a nice, good, educated guess. So looking at this, what do you think is going to happen? Why do you think this bean is going to grow bigger as opposed to the other bean? So they did really, again, the differentiation, whereas the Year 6 children got out of the scientific method what they have learned, and the Year 1 children have just consolidated their understanding and their learning about the scientific method as well.
Again, I had to really do the introduction in my class because we've just finished with learning about the scientific method and the application of it. So again, in my class, I first talked about how are you going to explain the scientific method to your buddy when you go to and visit your buddy today? How are you going to have to simplify your language and explain different or difficult vocabulary? So again, we had to do a lot of prompting before we just went to our buddies for the start of the lesson.
It does take a lot of preparation. It's not just a time where the buddies get together for once a week and just for an hour and they play or they simply read a book. There's lots involved. It is actually a proper lesson that is planned, differentiated, catered to all the children's needs. And obviously when a child is absent from Barbara's class or my class, how do we cope with that? How do we get the child, no child left behind? How do we make sure that they're all involved? So it does take a great deal of preparation. And then obviously a reflection at the end, a plenary, to say, how can we have done this better? So, I mean, we do plan to be buddies for a while, as long as her and I are teaching on both ends of the primary. So it's a nice sort of, moving like up building blocks. What can we do better the next year and the next year and the next year? So
We do have times, of course, that we just have a fun activity, and that's when we normally would link it with some sort of celebration. Like, I think in the next slide we have the Valentine's Day, is it not? Yeah. Like, for example, this one where it was Valentine's Day and the kids could just, one buddies could basically decorate a love rock, and my students could just help them with that. So this was definitely a little bit of a more fun activity than the previous ones. However, they seem to enjoy the ones that are linked to the inquiry as well.
what we do want to keep in mind, obviously, is that at the end of the day, it is all about fun.
Yeah.
You do make friends, you do learn, but also it's very important not to forget to have fun. And the theme was Love Rocks. So they had rocks that they had to decorate with their buddies and write a simple message on them. And it was just, it's nice. We celebrate, like I said, all of the celebrations and the holidays because we are such an international school. So Valentine's Day, Diwali, Eid, Halloween, Christmas, Easter, you name it. We're very, very proud and very prepared to do all that. And it caters to everybody. It's an absolutely wonderful, well-rounded experience. It really, really is. I mean, the children gain a lot, but I think as teachers, we also gain a lot professionally. So.
Yeah. Like, for example, the Diwali one that we did, where some of my year 6 students prepared a presentation on Diwali and what it's all about. So during the week of Diwali, they presented it to the year 1 buddies, which to them was a big thing because they had a bigger audience. It was not just their class friends. So that is something that they enjoyed a lot, and at the same time they had to think of how are they going to explain this to their buddies, so that by the end of this lesson their buddies would know what Diwali is and what it means to people who celebrate Diwali. Same with other celebrations as well. We try to do that together with our buddies as well.
We'll pass it over to Zane and
I should say probably at this point too as well, that as we shift from the primary school to the secondary school, we're trying ever so harder to reach those higher rungs of the ladder of participation that I showed you in the first slide. So you can begin to appreciate in the language that Barbara and Manal are using there, that students are beginning to be familiar with taking on roles, the role of the teacher, for example, as Barbara said, and beginning to be more aware of their own responsibility. So by the time we shift into the secondary school, students are much more aware of their responsibility and how to work with others about joint decision making.
Good morning and salam alaikum to you all. My name is Zain Jalal.
And I am Zalaya Wajba, and we won the French Ambassadors Initiative in high school.
So you might be wondering, what is our vision? Now, our vision is to simply promote anti-bullying through the provisions of educational and media resources to all students, regardless of race, gender, ability, and so on.
Now, once we move up to high school, once we've gone through all the systems in the elementary, such as the buddy system, we become more independent. We have gone through a lot. We are more mature, obviously, than elementary students, so we know. So our supervisor, Ms. Cookson, actually led us to be the leaders, and it's actually been extremely nice because we know the students. The students are more comfortable with us. We try to create a voice for them.
So this is our organizational structure. Our initiative was founded by Ms. Celia Cookson, who is the Student Welfare Coordinator. And then underneath, you have myself, Azalia, and our other co-student director, Shagaya Atbari, who cannot be with us today. And pretty much the structure goes, Azalia will tell you.
So the structure goes from the founder to me, Zain, and Shagai, the coordinators. Now, me, Zain, and Shagai decided that we would want to have attention to every single French ambassador, since we have 40 and not only 3 of us could handle them. So we got our fellow year 12s and we created groups and group leaders. So these are the group leaders and these are the groups. Now each individual leader is in charge of the group. So anytime we have an assembly, anytime we go to homerooms, they're in charge of them. And any problems that they have, we really do want to focus on each individual person. So each group leader is in charge of the group, so they know every single person.
Now, our current methods of approach are to raise awareness of the issue at hand, to increase education quality and opportunity, and tackle the issue of bullying.
Now, for us, we don't want to work just with the person who's getting bullied. We want to work with the person who is bullying because there might be a bigger reason to just bullying. Now, going into high school, everybody knows there's a lot of expectations that we do not have in elementary. There's loads more group of friends and there's a lot more pressure. Therefore, we try to work with both of them and find the reason behind them.
Now, our main objectives for the end of this academic year is to diminish bullying as a whole throughout the Dubai International Academy, to create a safe haven for all children at our school, and to create a voice for students who may not feel comfortable to speak up for themselves, and to tackle and solve all instances of bullying at DIA. Just to reiterate and reaffirm our points, what we do, if you take a look at our third point, by creating a voice for the students who have been or are still being bullied, many students who come into high school do not feel comfortable to perhaps come and speak to a teacher or a member of staff, and therefore with our presence there we create a friendly face for all students where a student can feel comfortable to come and speak to us at any given time, regardless whether it be a family issue at home, whether they're having problems with their homework, or whether they just want to know what to grab for lunch at the cafeteria.
And Ms. Cookson, our supervisor, also agrees with this. We really do want to try to create a safe environment for students. We don't want them to feel as if we're there just clearly to intimidate them. We want them to know that we're people as well. We have gone through what they have gone through, and we are here for anything they need. Now, these are our short-term objectives. So far, we have 40 friendship ambassadors, and we really want to expand it and create it to 50 plus because we already have done major projects just with 40. I'm thinking with even 50% more, we can do so much more. And we want to expand our initiative nationally to other schools. We don't want to limit it just to DIA. We want to bring it around Dubai. We want Dubai to just generally be a safe place. We want to continue to raise awareness through social media. We have had certain students who aren't even in the Friendship Ambassadors who have created videos, have created music videos. They're all on YouTube. Just about bullying and how bad it can be and the results, and to solve at least 40 cases of bullying. We have solved around 11 cases already, but DIA is already a very safe school, so we don't have as many as we expected.
Now, what we've done so far is every month or so we conduct a year-level assembly. And what we do throughout these assemblies are where we go up to perhaps 1 month we'll go and speak to the year 8s. And then we'll address certain issues or further reaffirm our views on anti-bullying and discuss the issue at hand and why it's so important as to why we, the students, should tackle it. We've also created homeroom pledges where you can see it on the right side of the presentation, which reads, "We, the students of Dubai International Academy, agree to join together to nurture and maintain an environment of care and inclusion for all members of our community. We agree to have a zero tolerance for all forms of bullying at our school and to promote a safe, happy, and inclusive environment where everybody feels respected and valued. We believe that all should enjoy our school equally and enjoy a peaceful life at home while on the internet. They should feel safe, secure, and accepted regardless of ethnicity, gender, personal and social standing, and religion. This is our pledge, and we do commit to it."
And these 3 strategies, including the Friendship Ambassador and the Friendship Pledges, have been extremely successful. The problem with our Friendship Ambassadors that we were usually in the shadows, like Zane said before, they had trouble coming to us. They thought as if we can't trust them. They thought that we were intimidating. So during the year level assemblies, we got bullying facts. We got our fellow Friendship Ambassadors, which are of all age groups, year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, 11, and 12. And we read out the facts. We made some Friendship Ambassadors come up and conduct the assemblies themselves, so they feel as if that we are there for them. And the homeroom pledges, we didn't just sign them ourselves as Friendship Ambassadors. We sent out the groups that we mentioned before to each and every homeroom in high school and middle school. And we got people to sign them. By signing the pledge, you commit to it. Therefore, you are not a bully. And if you see any bullying cases, you report it. And you try to stop as many conflicts as you can. And the friendship benches are basically benches around the school that have been decorated by elementary and high school in the art department. And they just have pictures of, they're very creative and they're very colorful, so they do catch people's attention, which have also been extremely successful. And that's the end.
Thank you very much. We'd like to hand over back to
Any questions that people might have? Please.
Can you tell me a bit more about how the friendship bench works? How is it monitored?
Yeah, sure. Basically what the friendship benches are, they're basically like pictures. They're art pieces done by students who have actually also been bullied. So there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of personal experiences. They are monitored. A lot of people know about them. They're in the hallways, they're by the quadrangles, there are many benches around the school. So they are very eye-catching and they are very inspirational as well.
what we have at DI, we have some amazing and extremely talented artists. So what we do is we go and we spoke to these artists to come in and design these friendship benches. And unfortunately, we don't have a photo to show you, but it's a normal bench as you would expect. However, they're colorful, they're bright. They're there to sort of reaffirm and reinforce our presence and to let all students around know that you're safe in this area.
And the use of bright colors, the use of pictures tries to promote happiness around the school. It makes the school look brighter, it makes the school just feel very safe in general.
And just one other point to add to that too as well. The understanding among students is that if you're feeling a little bit low, if you're out of sorts, if you're feeling a little bit alone, I think it's fair to say, guys, they can go and sit on one of these benches. And others will recognize that and come up to them and just start a conversation going. So it's the idea, simple idea. The idea is just put a nice colourful bench out there, put a few of them around the place. They don't have to be in the middle of the quadrangle or anything, but just put them nicely and discreetly around the place, and kids who are feeling a little bit out of sorts can go and sit there. So it's a great thing actually, it works very effectively.
And our team, we do maintain a presence around the entire school, and we do have our members around maintaining that presence around those benches. So if we do see a child perhaps who's having a bad day or looking upset, we sitting down on that bench, we can then go and approach them, and we know that we should speak to them.
Okay, thank you.
How often do you have this exchange of grade 1 and 6 students?
We have that once a week
For an hour.
for an hour, where a part of the first 10 to 15 minutes of the hour would be in separate classes where I would do an introduction, she would do an introduction with her class, and for the main part of the lesson we'll be together. And as I said before, our plenaries, most of the times we try to do the plenary together, but there are times that we do the plenary separately.
Our
Because the
buddies-
success criteria would have been different for
Yeah.
both kids.
Mostly, they come down to us. However, sometimes if they have something to present to us, like you said, the Diwali skit, we had to go up there because they had their things, they had all their materials, and they obviously had things set up there. Also, when they did their unit on bodyology, when it was all about how the systems work, we went up there and we saw how they had all their things set up. They had the esophagus, they had the digestive system, they had the organs all out. So it was quite, we do sort of, go up and down. So it's not always in the same classroom, in the same setting. It needs to be sort of a different sort of, feel to it every time, just to make it interesting and more special. But yes, to answer your question directly, it's once a week, every Monday for 1 hour.
And above all, if in case there are 20 students in grade 1 and there are maybe 15 students in
No, there are 26.
There are 26 in each
We
class.
cap every classroom at 26.
Right. And all the students will have buddies.
Every child is buddied up with one person.
There are the times when one student is absent, which they will
And then
just
it would be a
join
three.
another group, or another pair. But there have been once or twice that we did not have buddies, in which we just decided to skip the session because
Like today, we're here, so.
We're here while we're supposed to do that. But when we cannot think of something that we want them to do, then we'd rather not do that. We're not going to force it. But most of the times we can find something to do. And of course, to maintain that relationship between the buddies, we try to do it as often as possible. Otherwise, they won't be able
And
to-
like I said, the younger kids, I don't know about your kids, but the younger kids in year 1, they get very bummed when we have to cancel for whatever reason. The year 6 children obviously have more responsibility, they have more things going on with exhibitions and projects that they have to do. It's a bit more serious, let's say in year 6. So sometimes she sends me a quick email and says, I'm really sorry, but we're going to have to cancel today, or can we cut it short? Instead of 1 hour, can we make it half an hour? And my kids, oh boy, I mean, they get very, there's nobody's to... So they look forward to it every week. They really do. It's just a part of our timetable.
Is it only grade 1 and 6 or it has for other classes too?
It's for other classes too. Yes,
Absolutely.
some year 5 classes are doing it with year 2.
Yeah.
We try to keep the age gap there.
From KG1 to year 6. Yeah.
But it depends.
Her and I just decided that because we are such a different year level, that we would buddy up and it would just be very interesting.
Have you had any problems with the budgets in the sense like you have the older child who doesn't take responsibility for the younger one? Have you had issues?
That's a good question. It actually has happened, absolutely, where a child, even the child that you expect to be a bit more responsible and a bit more taking the initiative, is a bit lethargic and doesn't really, have the interest to do, the activities or whatever. It's just, I mean, you take each case as it comes. We try to encourage as much as possible. I even try, I remember I was in KG2, I taught KG2 for 5 years, and I was buddied up with a year 5 classroom, and that was the case in that relationship. And what I did was, I actually paired him up with a child in my class who was very vibrant, who had a very strong personality, and it worked completely the opposite, where the child in year 5 should have been taking initiative and a bit more, responsibility. It was the KG2 child who was 4 years old. So it's not always exactly how you expect it.
Of course, we try to keep the environment as positive as possible. So we're not going to do things like, oh, you couldn't take responsibility today, you need to stay and break.
Yeah.
We're not going to do that. We would possibly, I would put them with another pair of buddies and say, have a look at what they're doing. Maybe you could do that too. Or maybe you could get some ideas. Just keep it as positive as possible so that this remains a positive
happy
experience.
experience.
How about the topics which we put up? Like supposedly today you are doing the digestive system supposedly, and in their class they may not have even started. How you just match that?
Oh no, but they don't do the digestive
We don't.
system at all. We
Ours
do
is
it,
Just
yeah.
giving an example too, because somewhere if in case you want to teach a child and the child does not know anything about it, and we
Yeah.
are going to
That's what I mean.
system.
Yeah, so basically they don't learn about the digestive system, for example, or the we call it bodyology unit, where they learn about different systems in the body and how they are connected. So their class definitely wouldn't learn about that, but year 6 would. So what we ask our kids is to go to the year 1 students who would be a
Present.
complete different audience. How would you simple down your language? How would you simplify your language so that the year 1 student would be able to understand how the system that you research would...
And that, like Barbara said, it also builds their confidence, their self-esteem in year 6. It teaches them now they're going on after year 6, they go on to year 7, and that's the MYP, where it's the other world, it's the other building, now they're in high school. So how can that help them with their language? How can it help them with their speech, their speaking skills? And at the same time, it helps year 1 students. Can you be good listeners? What have you learned? Were you really, did you get informed? Were you a good audience? Did you show respect? Did you show the IB profiles? Were you caring? Were you reflective? Were you honest? Were you sincere? Were you, trying to be an inquirer? Are you knowledgeable now? So
It's also good for them to see what the other end of the school is doing and what they're learning about.
yeah.
Also,
But
for
at
them,
times the grade 6 children won't feel burdened that every time we have to prepare something and
They don't.
They don't always.
They don't always.
Yeah.
They're always
There are times when I'm preparing for assembly and I say to them, this time it's going to be our showcasing of the assembly. So now we are going to present to an
so at
audience
times
our
they can be
colleagues.
the audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're not always the ones who
No,
are
they're not.
preparing a lot. There were definitely times like the maths lesson that they had to prepare, but there are times where, like the UAE National Day celebrations, where we prepared the different stations and they just had to go and be the facilitators.
Yeah.
So your 26 of your children will go to her 26 of children.
And
But
each
not
other.
necessarily go to them physically. We do sometimes, but then they will come to us. Sometimes we book the Sky Garden upstairs and we do activities, in a much more open space. So it doesn't have to be a
It's not
classroom
cramped.
setting by any means, absolutely not.
No,
And
no.
even if we do, let's say we go to our classroom, obviously my classroom wouldn't cater to 52 children,
Yes.
and neither would hers. So what we would do is, some on the front carpet, I've got a classroom that opens up to the playground, so some children can go on the playground. We can use the corridor, the hallway right outside our classrooms. Same with Barbara as well, so.
Yeah. Or sometimes we haven't done this a lot, but you could always say, okay, half of your class come to me and half of my class will.
And then we would rotate.
How about grade 1s with grade 1s? Suppose you are taking grade 1s, yeah.
You know what, to be honest with you, we've never done that.
No.
We've always tried to mix up the year levels.
They like to have this older brother or sister, and my children like to be that older brother and sister.
And my kids love that, they cling on to their older brother or sister, especially when they really sometimes, in their own families, they don't have an older sibling. So the way that their eyes and their face just lights up when
I
their
think it's
older
really
buddies
important
come.
that there's a little bit of an age gap, so that the older one can have the self-esteem boost,
Yeah.
and the younger one can feel like they have this older brother or sister.
Right.
That will help them.
Yes.
At which age group do you think you start to become a buddy, the older buddy?
Yeah, 4 I think it is that we try to, however, is it 5 or 6?
Sorry, I didn't understand the
She
question.
wants to always be the buddy, the older buddy.
Oh, no, actually, I know a year 2 and a KG2 class that have paired up.
Yeah.
So there is no limit. There's no such thing as, the highest you can go or the lowest you can go is a certain age level. Absolutely
Ours
not.
happened to work out
We
that
just,
way.
because we're friends, and it just worked out that we're teaching different year levels, completely different year levels, so, yeah. But yeah, KG2 and year 2, which is really not much of a gap, it's just 2 years. KG2 and year 5, year 6 and KG1, talk about a spectrum.
I know, for example, there was a year 3 teacher who said, no, this year she wants her students to be the leaders, to be the older ones. So she paired up with a KG1 teacher.
Right.
Another year 3 teacher decided, no, I want my students to be taught,
Yeah.
to have that older brother and sister. So they paired up with a year 6 class. So it's up to the teacher basically and to decide what is it that you want as a teacher for your class. Because in both roles, there's benefits
Yeah,
in both roles.
absolutely. Both of them gain on different areas, different levels.
But definitely year 6 would be, doing the older, year 5 and 6 would be the older ones.
Yeah.
Is that pretty much it? Just thank you very much again to Barbara and to Manal and to Zain and to Azalia. Just from my side, I know there's a lot of principals and deputy principals here too as well. I'll just make a suggestion to you as well. If you want to encompass a lot of this into your own school and the way your school is working, we all know that when these things are not working out well enough, it usually ends up with the counsellor's office or a dean of students or a deputy principal's office if things are not working in the way that they would expect. I would suggest to you having a look at the prospect of setting up a role, doesn't even have to be monetarised, but a role initially of a student welfare coordinator. That role for us in the secondary school has proven to be very, very significant because it's somebody who is trying to establish as much as possible good relations amongst students. It's on the positive. We're on it, trying to emphasise the positive footing as much as possible. And that's definitely worked out for DIA and something I'd highly recommend. Thank you.